The huge alien building was full of noise and bright lights everywhere you looked. The walls were made of some kind of metal that changed colors, and there were strange machines beeping and humming all around. The place was so big that you could not see the end of it even if you tried really hard to look. Kongmin stood in a long line with hundreds of other humans waiting for their turn to be tested. He was scared, but he tried not to show it. The other humans around him looked worried. Some were talking quietly to each other, while others just stared at the floor. The aliens doing the testing were called Valdorians, and they were very tall with blue skin that looked like it was made of glass. They had 4 eyes that could move in different directions at the same time, which made them look very strange. Their hands had 6 fingers each, and when they moved, they made no sound. Kongmin watched as the Valdorians tested other aliens before the humans got their turn. There were big, strong creatures that looked like walking rocks. The Valdorians called them Throgans, and they could lift things that weighed as much as a truck with just one hand. When the Valdorians tested their strength, the machines started making loud warning sounds. Then there were the Zephyrians, who moved so fast that they looked like they were disappearing and appearing in different places. The Valdorians had to use special cameras just to see them move properly when they ran the ground under. Their feet would catch fire because they moved so fast. The Luxians were the strangest of all. They looked like they were made of crystal, and they could make bright energy come out of their hands. When they did this, the whole room would light up like the sun, and all the machines would start shaking. Finally, it was time for the humans to be tested. Kongmin watched as the first human walked up to the testing area. The Valdorian looked at him with all 4 eyes and started writing things down on a strange pad that glowed. The testing machine looked like a big chair with wires and lights all over it. When the human sat down, the machine started checking everything about him. It measured how strong he was, how fast he could run, how smart he was, and many other things. The results were not good for humans. The machine showed that humans were not very strong compared to the rock creatures. Humans were not very fast compared to the Zephyrians. Humans could not make energy with their hands like the Luxians could. The lead Valdorian, who was even taller than the others, looked at the results and started speaking. His voice sounded like metal scraping against metal, but the translation device made it sound normal. Species name human, he said, while looking at his glowing pad. Physical strength much lower than average. Speed not very good. Natural weapons none at all. Technology level very basic. Combat rating almost no threat at all. The humans were quickly moved to one side of the room where there was a sign that said low priority species. The Valdorians barely looked at them after that. Instead, they spent most of their time with the dangerous aliens like the rock creatures and the fast. Once Kongmin was put in the human holding area, which was just a big room with simple chairs and tables. The food they gave them was not very good, but it was enough to keep them alive. While they waited, the humans started talking to each other. That was when Kongmin saw something that the Valdorians had completely missed. Young Ho was a construction worker who had been building houses back on Earth. He was not very big or strong, but when he saw an old woman named Mrs. Park having trouble eating her food, he immediately gave her half of his own food. The woman started crying because she was so grateful, and Young Ho just smiled and said it was okay. Mrs. Park was not even from the same city as Young Ho. They had never met before, but he helped her anyway. In another corner of the room, a little girl named So Min was crying because she missed her parents. 2 strangers named Jin Woo and Hai Jin started taking turns holding her and telling her funny stories to make her feel better. They sang her songs and played simple games with her until she stopped crying. Kongmin looked around the room and saw this happening everywhere. Humans were sharing their food with each other, even though they did not have much. Humans were helping each other even when they were scared themselves. Humans were making friends with people they had never met before. The Valdorians had machines that could measure how strong someone was. They had devices that could test how fast someone could run. They had computers that could figure out how smart someone was, but they had no way to measure what Kongmin was seeing in that room. They could not measure how a construction worker would give up his food to help a stranger. They could not test how 2 people would spend hours comforting a child who was not even related to them. They had no machine that could figure out how humans could become friends so quickly. The Valdorians walked around the room, sometimes checking on the humans, but they did not see what was really happening. They saw Humans sitting and talking and eating, they did not see that the humans were becoming a family. When one human got sick, the others took care of him. When someone felt sad, the others cheered them up. When someone was scared, the others stayed close. To make them feel safe, the Valdorians had never seen anything like this before because no other species did this. The rock creatures were strong, but they only cared about themselves. The fast creatures were quick, but they did not help each other. The crystal creatures were powerful, but they stayed away from everyone else. Only the humans were different. As the hours passed, more and more humans were brought to the holding area. Each time new people arrived, the humans who were already there would welcome them and help them feel better. They would share information about what was happening and make sure everyone had enough food and water. The Valdorians kept writing down numbers and measurements about human bodies and human brains, but they never wrote down anything about human hearts. They never measured how humans could make each other stronger. Just by being kind, they never tested how humans could turn strangers into family. In just a few hours, Kangmin realized that the Valdorians had made a big mistake. They thought they had measured everything important about humans, but they had missed the most important thing of all. They had missed the thing that made humans special in the whole galaxy. The testing continued for days, and the results were always the same. Humans were weak compared to other species. Humans were slow compared to other species. Humans had no special powers like other species, but in the holding area something amazing was happening. The humans were becoming something that the Valdorians had never seen before. They were becoming a group that was stronger than any individual could be. They were becoming a team that could solve any problem together. They were becoming a family that would never give up on each other. The Valdorians finished their testing and started making plans to send all the species to different parts of the galaxy. They thought they knew everything about every species now. They thought they could predict what would happen next, but they were wrong about the humans. They had measured everything they could see and touch and count, but they had never measured the power of the human heart. They had never measured the strength that comes from caring about other people. They had never measured the force that humans could create when they worked together. The testing was over, but the real story was just beginning. The Valdorians thought they had figured out exactly how dangerous each species was, but they had no idea what they had missed about the humans. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 3 months had passed since the big alien testing, and now the Valdorians were ready to move all the different species to new places in the galaxy. They called this the Great Sorting, and they thought they were very smart about it. The plan was simple. According to the Valdorians, the dangerous species like the rock creatures and the fast creatures would be sent to special prison planets where they could be watched all the time. The harmless species like humans would be sent to planets where they could work and make things for the Galactic Empire. Commander Haewon was a former police officer from Korea, and she found herself on a planet called Mining Colony 7 along with 10,000 other humans. The planet was dark and cold and covered with huge mountains that had deep caves full of valuable minerals. The work was very hard and dangerous. The humans had to go deep into the caves every day to dig out special rocks and metals that the Valdorians needed for their war machines. The tools they were given were old and not very good, and the caves were dark and scary. The alien overseers were called mentors, and they looked like giant slugs with multiple eyes. They were slimy and moved very slowly, but they were mean and did not care if humans got hurt. They thought humans were just like animals that could be used for work. But something amazing started happening in the minds that the mentors did not notice or understand. When a human named Dongsu got hurt badly when rocks fell on his leg during a cave accident, other humans immediately stopped their work to help him, even though they did not know Dongsu very well, and even though they might get in trouble for stopping work. 6 humans worked together to carry him out of the dangerous cave. They took turns holding him up, and they found pieces of wood to make a stretcher, and they got him to the medical area as fast as they could. Mentors were angry about the lost work time, but they could not understand why humans would risk getting punished just to help someone they barely knew. This was not how other species behaved at all. When the food rations were cut because the Valdorians wanted to save money, humans like Namjae and Mi Young started organizing Sharing systems. Namjai was good at math, and he figured out how to divide the food so everyone got enough to stay healthy. Mi-ung was good at talking to people, and she made sure everyone knew about the sharing plan. The humans also started teaching each other different languages. The Koreans taught their language to humans from other countries, and they learned other languages too. Soon humans who came from completely different parts of Earth were talking to each other like old friends. But the most amazing thing was happening between different planets. The Valdorians thought they were being smart by putting humans on many different worlds. They thought this would stop humans from working together and causing trouble. They were completely wrong about this. On every planet where humans were sent, the same thing started happening. Humans began connecting with each other and finding ways to communicate with humans on other planets. On Mining Colony 7, a maintenance worker named Taeho discovered that he could change the mining equipment to send secret messages. The machines were connected to ships that traveled between planets, and Taeho figured out how to hide messages in the machine signals. His friend Subin was good with electronics, and she helped him make the messages stronger and harder for the aliens to detect. Soon they were getting messages from humans on dozens of other planets. The messages were simple at first, just letting humans know that they were not alone and that other humans were thinking about them. But soon the messages became more important. Humans started sharing information about their alien overseers and about the work they were doing and about the planets they were on agricultural world. 15 humans were supposed to be growing strange alien crops, but they were also growing something else. They were growing a network of communication and friendship. A farmer named Sangwoo found a way to use the crop irrigation system to send coded messages to other farming areas on Factory World. 23 humans was supposed to be making simple parts for alien machines, but engineer Minho discovered that the factory communication system could be modified to send messages to other factories. Soon humans on factory worlds were talking to humans on mining worlds and farming worlds. The Valdorians had no idea this was happening because they did not understand how humans worked. They thought that if you separated humans, they would become weak and scared and easy to control, but humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. When you separated humans, they did not become weaker, they became more determined to find each other again. When you scattered humans across many worlds, they did not give up. They started building bridges between those worlds every day. The secret communication network grew stronger. More humans learned how to send and receive messages. More planets were connected to the network. More information was shared between different human communities. The Valdorians walked around the different planets, checking on their human workers, and they saw exactly what they expected to see: humans digging in mines, humans growing crops, humans working in factories. The humans looked tired and obedient and harmless, but the Valdorians could not see what was really happening underneath. They could not see that every human community was becoming stronger and more organized. They could not see that humans were learning about alien technology and alien weaknesses. They could not see that humans were becoming friends with humans. They had never met on planets. They had never seen the great sorting. Was supposed to be the end of any human resistance. It was supposed to make humans feel hopeless and alone and powerless, but it had done the exact opposite by scattering humans across the galaxy. The Valdorians had accidentally given humanity something incredible. They had given them the entire galaxy as their new home, and humans were doing what they always did when they found a new home. They were making friends with their neighbors and building communities and creating families. The human network was growing every day, and the Valdorians had no idea that their perfect plan was actually creating their worst nightmare. They thought they had solved the human problem, but they had actually just made it much, much bigger. On Mining Colony 7, Commander Haewon received a message from Agricultural World 15. That made her smile for the first time in months. The message was simple, but it meant everything. We are still here, we are still together, we are still human. The great sorting was complete, but it had not sorted humans the way the Valdorians wanted. Instead, it had sorted humans into the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever seen: a species that could turn any challenge into an opportunity and any separation into a stronger connection. The Valdorians had measured human bodies and human minds, but they had never measured the human spirit, and the human spirit was about to show them what they had really unleashed. 1 year had passed since the great sorting, and strange reports were coming in from all over the galaxy. The Valdorian overseers were confused because things were not happening the way they expected on Agricultural World 12. Overseer Grix was a tall, thin alien with green skin and 3 arms. He was supposed to be watching the humans grow food, but he could not understand what was happening. The humans were growing more food than ever before, but they seemed to be working less than before. What? Grix did not know was that a human engineer named Kyung-ho had been watching the alien farming machines very carefully. Kyung-ho used to design factory equipment back on Earth, and he understood how machines worked. He had figured out how to make the farming machines work automatically so humans did not have to do as much manual labor. But that was not the only thing happening. A botanist named Eunji had been studying the alien crops, and she had discovered something amazing. She found out that if you mix the seeds from different alien plants, you could create new plants that grew much faster and produced more food. The humans were not just growing food, though. They were also growing something else. They were growing a secret army. Every agricultural world had been turned into a hidden fortress. The farming tools had been modified to work as weapons. The storage buildings had been turned into secret meeting places. The underground irrigation tunnels had been turned into hidden passages. The humans had learned to make everything look normal from above, but underneath they were preparing for something big. The Valdorians would fly over the farms and see humans working peacefully in the fields, but they could not see the weapons hidden in the barns or the secret training sessions happening in the underground tunnels on Industrial World 8. Factory Supervisor Jae-sung noticed that the humans were acting strangely. The humans were supposed to be making simple metal parts for alien machines, but somehow they were producing electronic equipment that was much more advanced than what they were supposed to make. A maintenance worker named Yuri had been assigned to fix broken machines in the factory, but she was actually doing something much more important. She had learned how to cause power outages that would last for exactly the right amount of time. During these outages, the security cameras would stop working and the alarm systems would shut down. During these perfectly timed blackouts, the humans would move quickly to steal important equipment and materials. They would take advanced computer chips and communication devices and weapon components. The aliens never figured out that the power outages were not accidents. The humans were also learning about alien technology much faster than the Valdorians thought possible. Janitor Woo-sik spent his days cleaning the factory floors, but he was actually studying the alien machines and memorizing how they worked. Cook Hae-young worked in the factory cafeteria, but she was secretly listening to alien conversations and learning their language. What the Valdorians did not understand was that humans were very good at learning things even when they were not supposed to be learning them. Every human was like a spy, gathering information and sharing it with other humans through the secret communication network. The awakening was happening on every world where humans lived: mining worlds, industrial worlds, agricultural worlds, research stations. Every human community was becoming stronger and smarter and more dangerous. On Research Station Omega, the aliens thought they had human servants who cleaned their laboratories and prepared their food, but the humans were actually students who were learning alien science and technology. Every Dia janitor named Sang-ho was supposed to empty trash cans and mop floors, but he was actually reading alien research papers and memorizing alien computer codes. A cook named Min-young was supposed to prepare alien food, but she was actually studying alien military manuals and learning about alien weapons. The humans had turned every job into a learning opportunity and every workplace into a school. They were becoming experts on alien technology, alien science, alien military tactics, and alien weaknesses. The Valdorians had made a terrible mistake when they decided to scatter humans across the galaxy. They thought they were putting humans in places where they could not cause trouble, but instead they had put humans in every important place in the galactic empire. Humans were working in the mines that produced the metals for alien weapons. Humans were working in the factories that made alien technology. Humans were working in the research stations where alien secrets were kept. Humans were working in the farms that fed the alien military, and every human was learning everything they could about how the alien empire worked and how It could be stopped. The communication network that had started as simple messages between friends had grown into something much bigger. It had become a galaxy-wide intelligence system that knew everything about alien operations. Commander Haywan on Mining Colony 7 now knew about alien troop movements from humans working on military bases. She knew about alien technology from humans working in research stations. She knew about alien food supplies from humans working on agricultural worlds. Every human community was sharing information with every other human community. The Valdorians had created exactly what they were trying to prevent. They had created an organized human resistance that spanned the entire galaxy, but the humans were not just gathering information, they were also preparing for action. The farming tools had been turned into weapons. The mining equipment had been turned into construction tools for building fortifications. The factory machines had been turned into weapon manufacturing systems. The awakening was almost complete. The humans had learned everything they needed to know about their alien captors. They had built everything they needed to fight back. They had connected every human community into one giant family. The Valdorians still thought they were dealing with a primitive species that was not very smart and not very dangerous. They still thought their measurements and calculations were correct. They still thought they were in control, but they were about to learn something that would change everything they thought they knew about humans. They were about to learn that humans were not just individuals who could be measured and categorized. Humans were something much more powerful. Humans were a force that grew stronger every time they were challenged. The awakening was ready to become something much bigger, and the Valdorians had no idea what was coming. 2 years had passed since the Great Sorting, and the Valdorian High Command was getting reports that made no sense at all. Mining equipment was breaking down on every mining world, but somehow the humans were still producing just as much valuable minerals as before. Agricultural production was too high, much higher than what primitive humans should be able to achieve. Industrial factories were experiencing strange power problems, but the production numbers were still meeting all the targets. Most confusing of all, the communication systems throughout the galaxy were having random interference problems. These problems created short periods when the Valdorian monitoring systems could not work properly, but these problems seemed to happen at different times on different worlds, so the Valdorians thought they were just normal technical difficulties. Research Station Commander Vex 9 was a very serious Valdorian who had been in the military for many years. He decided to investigate mining Colony 7 personally because the reports from that world were especially strange. When Vex 9 arrived at Mining Colony 7, he expected to find a simple operation with humans digging in caves and alien overseers watching them work, but what he found was something that should have been impossible. According to all Valdorian science, the humans had built an entire underground city using the mining tunnels. The city was huge and complex with different sections for different purposes. There were workshops where humans were making advanced tools and equipment. There were medical facilities that were better than most Valdorian hospitals. There were command centers with communication equipment that could reach other worlds. Engineer Wu Jin had become the leader of the underground construction project. He had studied the alien mining equipment and figured out how to use it to carve out huge underground spaces. He had also learned how to reinforce the tunnels so they would not collapse, and how to create ventilation systems so people could breathe properly. Dr. Hyra had set up the medical facilities, and she had trained dozens of other humans to be medical assistants. She had studied alien medical equipment and learned how to use it to treat both human injuries and alien diseases. She had even figured out how to make human medicines using alien plants. But the most impressive discovery was the communication center that was being run by a former telecommunications worker named Chang Ho back on Earth. Chang Ho had worked for a phone company, and he understood how communication systems work. At Chang Ho had spent months studying the alien communication equipment that was used in the mining operations. He had figured out how to modify this equipment to send secret messages to other worlds. He had also learned how to hide these messages so they looked like normal mining data to the Valdorian computers. Using this system, Chang Ho had established contact with human communities on 47 different worlds. The communication network was much bigger than the Valdorians had ever imagined. Every human community was connected to every other human community. The humans were not just surviving in their underground cities, they were actually doing better than they had ever done before. They had plenty of food because they had learned how to grow alien crops in underground gardens. They had comfortable living spaces because they had learned how to use alien construction materials. They had entertainment and education because they had created schools and libraries and recreation areas. Every world had become a specialized center of the human resistance. Agricultural worlds were growing food for the entire underground network, and they were also developing new types of crops that could grow in difficult conditions. Industrial worlds were manufacturing weapons and equipment, and they were also creating new types of technology that combined human knowledge with alien. Science research stations were the most important of all because humans working there were learning alien secrets and sharing them with the entire network. These humans had access to the most advanced alien technology, and they were learning how to use it and how to defeat it. What terrified Commander Vex 9 the most was realizing that the Valdorian measurement systems had been completely wrong. The Valdorians had tested individual humans to see how strong they were and how smart they were and how dangerous they could be, but humanity's real strength was not in any single person. Humanity's real strength was in their ability to make any group of people stronger than they could be alone. When you put humans together, they did not just add their individual strengths together, they multiplied their strengths and created something much more powerful. A human alone might be weak, but humans together were becoming something that was far more dangerous than the strongest rock creatures, or the fastest lightning creatures, or the most powerful crystal creatures. The underground network was not just a hiding place. It was a new form of civilization that was growing stronger every day. The humans had created a society that was more advanced than anything the Valdorians had ever seen. The humans had taken the worst situation possible, being scattered across the galaxy and separated from their homeworld, and they had turned it into an opportunity to create something amazing. They had turned every challenge into a chance to learn and grow and become stronger. Commander Vex 9 realized that the Valdorians had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had not just underestimated humans, they had completely misunderstood what humans were capable of. The underground was not just hidden, it was also growing every day. More humans were learning alien technology. Every day the communication network was reaching more worlds. Every day the human communities were becoming more organized and more powerful. The Valdorians had thought they were dealing with a primitive species that could be easily controlled, but they were actually dealing with something much more dangerous. They were dealing with a species that could learn and adapt and grow stronger no matter what challenges they faced. The underground was complete, and it was ready to become something that would change the galaxy forever. The humans had built something that the Valdorians could not measure or understand or control. The next phase of the human plan was about to begin, and the Valdorians still had no idea what they were really facing. The Valdorian High Council was the most important group of leaders in the galaxy. They had ruled over hundreds of species for thousands of years, and they had never faced a problem they could not solve. But now they were meeting an emergency session because they were getting reports that made no sense. The reports were coming from every part of the galaxy, and they all said the same impossible thing. The humans were not behaving like humans were supposed to behave according to all Valdorian science and measurements. On Research Station Omega, the humans were not just cleaning laboratories and cooking food like they were supposed to be doing. They were actually learning alien science and technology at a rate that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. Janitor Sang-Ho was supposed to empty trash containers and clean floors, but security recordings showed that he was actually spending time reading alien research documents and studying alien computer systems. He had somehow learned the entire alien database structure, and he could access information that was supposed to be secret. Cook Min-young was supposed to prepare food for the alien researchers, but she was actually studying alien military protocols and learning about alien weapon systems. She had been secretly reading classified documents for months, and she knew more about Valdorian military operations than some Valdorian officers, but the most shocking discovery came from Agricultural World 15, where Overseer Zenth had been investigating why the farming operations were so successful. The humans were not just growing crops, they were actually growing a revolution. The farming communities that were led by an agronomist named Sung Min had developed a communication system that was completely invisible to alien detection equipment. They were using the patterns of plant growth to create messages that could be read from space. The crops were planted in specific patterns that looked like natural vegetation to alien scanners, but were actually complex coded messages that could be read by humans on other worlds. This plant communication network was sending information about alien military movements, troop locations, and strategic plans. Chief Researcher Kek-7 was the smartest Valdorian scientist, and he was responsible for analyzing all the disturbing reports. He stood before the High Council and presented the terrifying truth about what the humans had actually accomplished. The humans had achieved something that was completely unprecedented in galactic history. They had turned every single weakness into a strength and every disadvantage into an advantage. Their lack of natural weapons had forced them to become creative, and they had learned to make weapons from anything they could find. Their primitive technology had made them curious, and they had studied and mastered alien systems faster than anyone thought possible. Their peaceful nature had made other species trust them, and this had created allies throughout the galaxy. Even some Valdorian guards and overseers were starting to question whether the human classification system was correct, but the most disturbing discovery was something that the Valdorians had never encountered before in any species. The humans had maintained their unity and compassion even under the worst conditions possible. While other species would break apart into competing groups when they were under stress, the humans had become more united. Construction worker Quan Su shared his food with alien prisoners even though he barely had enough for himself. Teacher Yuna taught Valdorian children to read in secret even though she could be severely punished for this. Dr. Junho treated injured alien overseers with the same care he gave to injured humans. The Valdorians had advanced psychology, and they understood how different species behaved under pressure. Every species they had studied would become selfish and violent when they were threatened, but humans were different. Humans became more caring and more generous when they faced difficulties. The High Council realized that they had made a fundamental error in their understanding of what made a species dangerous. They had measured every species' capacity for violence and destruction, but they had never measured any species' capacity for love and cooperation. They had cataloged every possible weapon, but they had never cataloged the power of hope and friendship. They had calculated every possible threat, but they had never calculated the strength that comes from having something worth fighting for. The humans had something that no other species in the galaxy had ever possessed. They had the ability to make their enemies question whether they were really enemies at all. Valdorian guards, who had been cruel to humans for months, were starting to feel guilty about their actions. Alien overseers who had treated humans like animals were beginning to see them as people. Research scientists who had classified humans as primitive were realizing that humans might be more advanced than they had thought. The revelation was spreading throughout the Valdorian Empire like a disease that could not be stopped. Every alien who spent time around humans was being changed by the experience. They were learning that humans were not just another species. Humans were something completely new. The humans had discovered the secret of turning enemies into friends. And this was more dangerous than any weapon that had ever been created. When you could make your enemies stop wanting to fight, you had already won the war. The High Council realized that they were not just dealing with a rebellion or a resistance movement. They were dealing with something much more fundamental. They were dealing with a species that could change the nature of galactic civilization itself. The revelation was complete. The humans had shown that there was a different way to be powerful, a way that was based on bringing people together instead of keeping them apart. The Valdorians had built their empire on fear and control, but the humans were showing everyone that there was another way. The galaxy would never be the same, because once you learned that there was a better way to live, it was impossible to go back to the old way. The humans had not just revealed their own strength, they had revealed the weakness of the entire Valdorian system. The revelation was spreading, and there was no way to stop it. Part 6. The variable. The final confrontation came not through violence, but through something the Valdorians had never expected: conversion. Across the galaxy, alien overseers were beginning to question their own system. On Mining Colony 7, Mentor Grix found himself actually caring about the human workers' welfare after watching them care for each other. On Agricultural World 12, Supervisor Yenth began secretly helping humans after witnessing their kindness to his injured offspring. The revolution began with a simple act. When Valdorian Guard Zek 5 collapsed from exhaustion on Industrial World 8, factory workers Taemin and Yunga didn't hesitate to help him, even though he had been cruel to them for months. That single act of compassion began a chain reaction that spread throughout the facility, then the planet, then the entire sector. The humans had discovered the variable that the Valdorians had never measured, the power to transform enemies into allies through simple human decency. Every act of kindness, every moment of sacrifice, every display of courage in the face of oppression had been changing the galaxy one heart at a time. The final battle wasn't fought with weapons or strategies, it was won with something far more powerful. When the Valdorian military arrived to crush the human uprising, they found their own soldiers refusing to fight. Countless alien species had joined the human cause, not because they were conquered, but because they had been loved. Commander Haywon stood before the Valdorian High Council not as a prisoner, but as a representative of the new Galactic Alliance. "You measured our strength," she said simply, "but you forgot the most important variable of all. You never measured our capacity to make everyone around us stronger." The Valdorians had spent centuries cataloging every species' capabilities, but they had never encountered a species whose greatest power was making others better than they were before. The variable they had missed wasn't in humanity's muscles or minds, it was in humanity's heart. The galaxy would never be the same, because humanity had shown every species something they had never seen before, the strength that comes from choosing love over fear, hope over despair, and unity over division. The Valdorians had measured everything, but they had forgotten the one variable that mattered most, the power of the human spirit to transform not just individuals, but entire civilizations. The measurement was complete, and humanity had won not by being the strongest, but by making everyone else stronger too. The final confrontation did not happen the way anyone expected. There were no big battles with weapons and explosions. There were no armies fighting each other across planets. Instead, something much more powerful happened, something that changed everything. The change started with individual aliens who worked closely with humans. Every day, these aliens saw humans doing things that did not match what the Valdorian science said humans should be able to do. Mining Colony 7 Mentor Grix had been watching the human workers for 2 years. He had always thought of humans as simple animals that were useful for heavy labor. But slowly he started noticing things that confused him. When human workers got injured, other humans would immediately stop their work to help, even if they might get in trouble for it. When food supplies were low, humans would share their meals with each other and make sure everyone got enough. When new humans arrived from other planets, the existing humans would welcome them and help them learn how to survive. At first, Grix thought this was just instinct, like how some animals take care of their young. But then he started paying more attention, and he realized that humans were making choices to help each other even when it was difficult or dangerous for them. The moment that changed everything for Grix happened during a cave collapse. A human named Taemin was working in a dangerous tunnel when rocks started falling. Most workers would have run to save themselves, but Taemin stayed behind to help an injured Valdorian guard named Zek 5, who had been trapped under fallen stone starmen. Could have escaped easily, but instead he worked for hours to move the heavy rocks and free Zek 5. Then he carried the injured guard to safety, even though the guard had been cruel to human workers for months. When Zek 5 recovered, he asked Taemin why he had risked his life to save someone who had treated him badly. Taemin just said that it was the right thing to do and that everyone deserved help when they were in trouble. This simple act of kindness started a chain reaction that spread throughout the mining colony. Zek 5 began treating human workers with respect and kindness. Other guards saw this and started questioning their own behavior. The humans continued to show compassion even to aliens who had been mean to them. The same thing was happening on planets throughout the galaxy. On Agricultural World 15, Overseer Zenth found himself actually caring about the welfare of his human workers after watching them care for each other, and even for him when he became sick on Industrial World 8. Factory supervisor Jae-sung began secretly helping humans after he witnessed their kindness to his injured offspring. When the young alien fell into a machine, the revolution was not being fought with weapons or violence. Instead, it was being fought with something much more powerful, the simple human ability to show love and compassion to anyone who needed it. The humans had discovered something that no other species in the galaxy had ever understood. They had learned that the most effective way to defeat an enemy was not to destroy them, but to turn them into a friend. Every act of kindness, every moment of sacrifice, every display of courage in the face of difficulty was changing the hearts and minds of aliens throughout the galaxy. The humans were not conquering through force, they were conquering through love. When the Valdorian military forces finally arrived to crush what they thought was a human uprising, they found something completely unexpected. Their own soldiers were refusing to fight. Many of the alien species that were supposed to be enemies of humanity had joined the human cause. The final confrontation took place not on a battlefield, but in the great assembly hall of the Valdorian capital. Commander Haewon stood before the Valdorian High Council not as a prisoner, but as a representative of a new galactic alliance that included hundreds of species. The hall was filled with aliens from every part of the galaxy. Many of them had been enemies of each other for centuries, but they were now united by something. They had learned from humans the power of working together. Instead of fighting against each other, Commander Haewon spoke simply and clearly. "You measured our strength," she said, "but you forgot the most important thing of all. You never measured our ability to make everyone around us stronger than they were." Before the High Council looked around the hall and saw the evidence of what she was saying, aliens who had been fighting each other for generations were now working together. Species that had never trusted each other were now friends. Enemies had become allies, not through conquest but through compassion. The humans had shown every species in the galaxy something they had never seen before. They had shown them that there was a different way to be powerful, a way that was based on bringing people together instead of keeping them apart. The Valdorians had spent centuries cataloging every species' capabilities, but they had never encountered a species whose greatest power was making others better than they were before. The variable they had missed was not in humanity's muscles or minds, it was in humanity's heart. The measurement was complete, and the results were clear. Humanity had not won by being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. They had won by being the most human, by showing love instead of hate, hope instead of fear, and unity instead of division. The galaxy would never be the same because humanity had taught every species the most important lesson of all, that the greatest strength comes not from what you can do alone, but from what you can accomplish when you work together with others. The human spirit had transformed, not they measured every species' strength, but forgot one key variable.